Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. So I don't know where I've been, but apparently it's a fairly controversial statement to say that Comphet impacts lots of different people and not just lesbians. So here we are talking about it. I had a video up on my TikTok. Don't bother going to look for it. It's down now because I'm not engaging in this in comments with people who are not bothering to get some education on this. But we're going to talk about it here because, well, this is where I talk about this kind of stuff. It is apparently a fairly widespread understanding that Comphet only impacts lesbians and does not impact people who are bisexual. I'm here to tell you that Comphet actually impacts lesbians, people who are bisexual. It can impact straight women. It can impact gay men. It can impact bisexual men. There are all types of people that Comphet can impact. Let's talk about this for a second. Comphet itself is compulsory heterosexuality. It is the assumption that we are all born to be heterosexual. It is also the assumption that we are all born to be in relationships that are heterosexual, and we are not complete unless we are in a heterosexual relationship. So anybody who is not in a heterosexual relationship is outside of this Comphet expectation. So you can clearly see why this would be something that would impact, say, people who identify as a lesbian. But the thing that I am just now discovering, that there are a fair number of people out there who also think that if you're a bisexual woman, you can experience Comphet because you do also experience connection or relationship with or attraction to men. And because heterosexuality or heteronormativity would tell you that that is the right way to be, that you're fine. And I don't know what goes on in people's brains that makes them think that anyone who grows up in a world that expects people to be heteronormative, heterosexist, would not struggle with the fact that they have any kind of attraction outside of that norm. Who thinks that? I can't understand who thinks this. So let's take it back a minute. For the most part, most people watching this have grown up in societies that have told you if you are born assigned female, you are going to grow up, meet a man, and marry him and have babies with him, who are also going to grow up and meet someone of the opposite gender that they are assigned at birth and have babies. And that is how the world works. And anything outside of that is a little bit odd, a little bit off. And yeah, maybe your family will get used to it, but you're still outside of the norm. Even if you happen to be in a family that does not teach you that narrative, everything you're exposed to does. Television, movies, books, magazines, friends. Like, you can't really completely escape this expectation. When you begin to understand yourself outside of that narrative and expectation that the world, possibly your family, possibly yourself or your religious community puts on you, typically are going to go through a little bit of a self-discovery process, and it can be difficult. To the point of the struggle that Comphet brings into people's lives, when you see yourself outside of what is the norm and expected, big air quotes on norm, when you see yourself outside of that, you wonder if there's something, wrong with you. You wonder if there's something going on with you that is influenced externally, that is not necessarily how you really feel, that is not going to be continuous throughout your life and is going to pass maybe a phase. Anyone ever heard that said to them or thought that themselves? You typically think this is going to go away at some point, and then it doesn't, and then you have to deal with it. If you are a woman who doesn't have any attraction to men, you do need to somehow figure out how to divest yourself of heteronormativity and that expectation and assumption that one day you will marry a man and be presented to society as a typical couple. And that is something that is difficult to work through, and I would never take that away from anyone. And also, it is something that's difficult to work through when you understand yourself to be bisexual. The bi-erasure piece of this argument is kind of astounding to me. I've said numerous times on this channel, the bi-erasure that comes from inside of the community is so much more offensive to me than the stuff that comes from outside the community, because in general, if a straight person is going to say something negative about someone who's bi, it's like, fuck you, go away, I don't really care. If someone inside of the community is going to say that, that's going to hurt more because you too are a marginalized person. Why are you trying to marginalize me or someone else is bisexual in addition to the way that the world is already marginalizing us? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but we all know it's happening. But within that arena, to assume that bisexual people do not deal with Comphet is another level of bi-erasure. The assumption that someone who starts to understand themselves to have attraction that is outside of the heteronormative narrative, and that does not cause them some amount of discomfort and confusion and frustration and sometimes fear is so belittling of someone else's experience, especially if it's not an experience that you've had. Like, how do you know if it's not an experience you've had? There's this patriarchal assumption about attraction as a whole that assumes that bisexual men are actually on their way to being gay and bisexual women are actually just straight and just sort of curious about women, because in reality, everyone's attracted to men, right? It's all sort of about men and how everyone wants a man. And then, lesbians are just sort of like out there somewhere, I guess. Anyone who experiences attraction must be attracted to men. And then we just don't talk about people who don't experience attraction, right? Because I don't know. But this patriarchal assumption that everything in the world revolves around men is played into when we assume that Comphet does not apply to bisexual women. Do you get that? When these comments come in about the fact that bisexual women specifically cannot experience compulsory heterosexuality because they do on some level play into heterosexual narrative, completely ignores the idea that there is still a part of them that exists outside of that heterosexual narrative and always will exist outside of that heterosexual narrative. They always do have the possibility to be attracted to someone who is not going to fit within that appearance of a heterosexual relationship. When you bring straight women into it, we're kind of in the same place, because as straight women grow up, there is still that expectation that your whole purpose is to be in a relationship with a man. So if you're not dating someone and you're of dating age, especially the older you get, the more people are going to ask you,
are you seeing anybody?
How come you're not with somebody?
When are you going to get married?
You're losing time.
Isn't your clock ticking?
These are all questions that get thrown at women constantly, because your entire worth is your relationship to a man in your life. Which again is why it absolutely floors me when I hear these kind of comments from women who are in the women loving women community and category to say to women who also have the potential to be attracted to men. When I see it said on this channel, when I've had it said to me, when I know other people who've had it said to them, that you have the ability to be normal and to pass as normal, so there is no actual evidence of pain or difficulty in your life because you can just be with a man, is so degrading. My number one video on this channel is my video about bisexual grief, and every week it is the highest viewed video. The reason it's the highest viewed video is because this is stuff that nobody's talking about. There's nothing profound in that video, with the exception of no one else is talking about the fact that this is a difficult place for people to find themselves, because so many areas of so many communities have decided that no one who identifies as bisexual has a difficult time because they, have all of the options. But you could have all of the options in the world. That doesn't mean you're automatically attracted to everyone. And when everyone is so leery of you and your attraction level and ability to be attracted to people, you're left out of a lot of things. And while attraction is not a choice, who you decide to be in a relationship with is a choice. You choose to be in a relationship with someone. And that's just a fact, right? When you enter in a relationship with someone, you are choosing to be. And if you're not, that's not a relationship, because you don't have autonomy to be in the relationship. And that's a very different video. Who you choose to be in a relationship with is your choice and should be your choice. But being in a relationship with someone, no matter who they are, does not invalidate your identity or your sexual orientation. And the idea that there's anyone out there who thinks that it does, and who thinks that it determines the things that you do and do not struggle with internally, is playing into the narrative of marginalization. You're playing into the narrative of compulsory heterosexuality, and you have very much not unlearned the things that compulsory heterosexuality has taught you, which is that the norm is for a woman to be with a man and a man to be with a woman. That's what you're playing into when you're assuming that bisexual people do not experience this. Because the entirety of the message that you're sending is that while you have the capacity to be attracted to a man, you're fine and you don't struggle. The message you're relaying under that is that the only thing to struggle with is when you're outside of the norm. So you are perpetrating the norm. I don't understand how this is difficult to understand. Here you are. There's your education on it. Feel free to send this video to anybody who does not understand this concept, because it's not difficult to understand. It is not difficult to support someone in what they're going through and not have it lessen what you are going through. Accepting that someone else has a struggle does not mean your struggle is not real. Accepting that someone else is going through something does not negate the things that you are going through in your life. No one is measuring or comparing the difficulty that different people are going through, because that would be an unfair thing to do. We are not comparing struggles. We are simply saying that there are struggles because the assumption that the world has and gives to people on who they are, how they identify, how they share that with the world, and how they experience love and relationship and attraction, those labels are unfair, and those expectations are not ones that we need to continue to play into. The more that people within the queer community play into those expectations, the more those expectations are seen as fair to those outside of the community. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time as long as you keep watching my videos. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.